Next.
Zeshan Qureshi writes, I love your show and listen to it daily before going to bed and have never missed an episode for 7 months. I have a question that Inception was such a big critical and commercial success and so many people loved it, but why hasn't there been any sequel to it? If Chris Nolan isn't interested in making a sequel, then why isn't the studio pursuing him to make one? Thank you and keep up the great work.
Okay, so let me preface this by saying everybody knows I am totally for sequels. I am totally for reboots. They have every bit of a chance to be as good, to be a good movie as any other movie does, so I'm totally fine with it all, and if they suck, it doesn't matter. That being said, that doesn't mean I think every movie has to have one. Like, if Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers came out and said, we're going to do an Inception 2, I would go, okay, cool. I'm sure. I'm very curious to see what Christopher Nolan's coming up with, but I'm not sitting here thinking, apart from that, thinking, wow, we really need an Inception sequel. That movie was so definitively ended. And I just don't know where, with a movie like Inception, where do you go? I mean, we talked about this once about a year ago, I think, where it's like, what do you do next? You go to, now we're going into a dream within 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 a dream. Like, that's all you're going to do. It's just, it's the law of diminishing returns. You just got to go further with it. It's just not something I am sitting here interested in. Christopher Nolan comes out and says, I got a great idea for when I'm going to do it. Okay, you'll get my attention. But it's just not a movie that needs one. Christopher Nolan has other things he wants to do, and Warner Brothers is perfectly happy letting him do other things because everything he does makes money. That's the thing. Warner Brothers doesn't need a Christopher Nolan sequel in order to make money. He can just make whatever he wants, and they're going to make money, and they know it. And so, yeah, that's just my opinion of it. Mark, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think that Inception is one of those rare movies that just doesn't need a sequel, especially the way that it ended. It was a little open-ended, and it was left to the audience's interpretation of what exactly was going to happen right after that frame stopped. And I don't need to know that. I think that if you wanted to do a different Inception story in another universe where it's like, oh, no, we're in a different country, and it's a different time with different people, and we're going to break into this guy's head and then into his dreams, and then we also have to sneak into Alcatraz or something. Like we have to do something else on
Where'd
top
Alcatraz
of that.
come from?
But
That's awesome.
I just love the rock.
A dream Alcatraz.
Starring Nicolas Cage.
Dream Alcatraz is even harder to get into than real Alcatraz because there's more sharks.
You got a movie right there. It's multiple Alcatrazes.
That's right.
And the deeper you go, the bigger Alcatraz gets. Now I'm inside Alcatraz. It just keeps getting bigger.
I just can't imagine, and again, I'm not a filmmaker, I can't imagine an idea good enough that Christopher Nolan would want to come back. Now, again, having said that, you're right. Everything he's doing, he's knocking out of the park, at least financially. Interstellar was really good. The Batman movies are phenomenal, okay? But if he starts to go down a road where, what if he suddenly becomes the next Shyamalan and he just starts making a bunch of dud movies, and then all of a sudden he has this crazy idea and he wants to bring it to the studio, and they're like, hey, what do you got with Inception 2? Like the same way studios would be like, hey, M. Night, what do you think about, remember those aliens and signs that people liked? Maybe you do another one of those, you know? Yeah. So I just don't see that happening with Christopher Nolan.
Should they do another Inception?
I don't think so. It would be like, to me, it's like, should they make another Transcendence? Everyone would obviously say no. Why? Because it wasn't a good movie and it failed at the box office. To me, it's a one and done type of an idea. Inception, to me, is a one and done type of an idea. And I love movies that are simply movies. That's part of the joy of going to see a film. I don't go see a film hoping what the second one or the third or the fourth. To me, comic book movies do have that because they're part of especially the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. It's all combined, and they made you aware that, hey, we're combining our movies just like the way the comic books used to combine their comics. They were all kind of lived in the same world. So to me, that's since it's already been defined that way, it's fun to think about, oh, I wonder how this character is going to pop into this world or whatever. But just the straight up seeing a film as a film, I don't go in wanting a sequel, and I specifically don't want sequels to amazing films like something like Inception or Memento. Imagine if there was a Memento 2. It'd be like, why? Certain films that's what separates films from television. Television is a soap opera that goes on sprawling for 10 to 20 hours of television. Movies are finite, act 1, act 2, act 3. Movies have a specific goal in mind when you go see that film. So I don't know. I mean, they're also a business. So yeah, Inception made a ton of money. It's a cool idea.
I'm sure the studio was like, hey, do you have any other ideas?
You got another Inception? We could go anywhere. Hey, it's like, sure. I mean, and if by some chance, Nolan's like, I came up with this nugget of an idea. I gave it to Jonathan. He popped out a screenplay, and now we're going to give this to Fritz. Fritz is going to go direct it. And you're going to be like Inception 2, but it doesn't have Nolan, but it's Nolan-y or whatever. He wrote it or what, you know what I mean? It's like, it would be that kind of thing. Like, it would be halvesies, you know? You'd be like, I'll go see it, but with some trepidation because it's not full Nolan. You can't go half Nolan or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Don't ever go half Nolan, whatever. It's